YouTube? Welcome to Fred's Full Throttle. This week, I decided to move on from the Z06 pricing discussions and start taking a look at the C8 E-Ray. What is an E-Ray? Where does it fit in the Corvette lineup? Is it fast? And most importantly, is it going to be fun? I'm going to take a look at the car, sharing what information has been released, as well as cover some of the not confirmed but likely to be true guesses about the other aspects of the car. One important note, for everything I'm going to share here, I'm going to try to be clear about what is confirmed and official versus what is speculation or an educated guess. So let's talk about the E-Ray. So what is an E-Ray? Well, right now it's nothing more than a name, but more than that, it's not a definite name for an upcoming Corvette model in the C8 range. Way back in 2015, Chevy filed for trademarks for the E-Ray and Corvette E-Ray names. Just like with website domains, frequently companies trademark potential names for products very early on. This is to avoid conflicts with other trademark holders. Obviously, Chevy didn't do anything with the name right away, but more interestingly, back in 2020, Chevy renewed this trademark. So what's in the name E-Ray? Well, first there's the E. Obviously, this is hinting at electrification in one way or another, as there are a million other products out there with an E at the front, and it denotes electricity. And then there is Ray, a play off the Stingray name, which ties this name to the Corvette pretty closely. Then the last piece is that the second trademark registered was Corvette E-Ray, so Chevy drew an even stronger connection for us to follow. Now, it's worth noting that Chevy has not said anything tying this name to their teased car. E-Ray could just be one of multiple names that they're considering, and at the moment there's nothing official there. So while E-Ray seems like a cool name for the car, it's nothing more than a reasonable guess at this point. Now, back on April 25th of this year, Chevy finally broke their silence with a very, very short teaser video of this mysterious car, which from here on I'm going to call the E-Ray just for convenience sake. In the short video clip shared on YouTube, they show a Corvette driving around on a frozen surface, clearly powered in part by the front wheels. In parallel with that video release, GM also had a press release with GM President Mark Roos saying that the car will be fully revealed in 2023 and was in testing then. He also indicated that there will be multiple new Corvettes coming and was careful to use the term electrified for one of them and fully electric for another. As was stated in the Z06 unveil video, Chevy is on the record saying that they are just warming up with multiple variants of the C8 Corvette. So this aligns with those earlier statements. So first of all, what's official? Well, right now, not a whole lot. We don't have a name, we don't have specs, we don't have much from the official statements. We know that there will be hybrid and fully electric versions of the Corvette, but we don't know if they will both fall under the E-Ray naming or if they'll use some different names. Some speculation suggests that the hybrid car could actually be a new Grand Sport, while the E-Ray could be reserved for the fully electric variant. However, there's nothing officially to back that up. But from the teaser reveal video, there are a few things that we can discern from the footage. First, the car is all-wheel drive. Next, the car does have a gas engine. You can hear the exhaust as well as you can see the exhaust pipes on the back of the car. The car does gain the wide bodywork of the Z06, likely with minor tweaks for styling and differentiation between the models. There are different 5-spoke wheels than either the Stingray or the Z06. Now, these are not to be mistaken for the 5-spoke Carbon Revolution wheels on the Z06. The spokes here taper significantly towards the tips and are widest at the hub, as well as they have an offset twist where the center line of each spoke passes outside the center of the hub. The front hood appears to be openable based on the hood lines, though it's unclear how big that front trunk will be, and the side corner exhausts of the Stingray are retained. The engine also is not the LT6 from the Z06. So that's everything that we've either visually confirmed or have confirmation of. So going from the confirmed, what else do we think we know about it? Well, speculation puts the E-Ray as likely retaining the 6.2-liter LT2 V8, which makes 495 horsepower from the Stingray. There could potentially be some minor tweaks to boost power output, but based on the sound of the car from spy photographers' videos, it's very clearly not the LT6 from the Z06. Motor Trend also reports that the car will likely feature 2 front electric motors, one for each front tire, though there is also an opportunity for a single motor. At this point, we don't know, though 2 motors would potentially be a little bit simpler, since you wouldn't need to build a differential to split the power out between the front wheels. And you get the benefit of very granular control for each front wheel independently. Now, with dual motors in the front, this could mean losing a little bit of the storage in the front, but it's unclear how much, if any, would be lost. Modern electric motors can be fairly compact, and Chevy engineers can get pretty resourceful to hide as much of the componentry deeper inside the car so to keep that front bay available. While the E-Ray is going to be a hybrid, the current speculation is that it will be a performance hybrid along the lines of the NSX, the McLaren P1, and the Ferrari SF90, where the hybrid drivetrain is used to bolster the car for better performance rather than focusing on efficiency. This isn't to say that the car won't get any efficiency advantages. The car may be able to operate for short distances in a full EV mode, or have a party trick high efficiency mode that boosts that fuel economy beyond the 1624 of the Stingray. This also means that the car will very likely not be a plug-in hybrid, instead simplifying the design and relying on potentially regenerative braking as well as the gas engine to charge the batteries. There is a pretty reasonable hypothesis that the center tunnel in the middle of the car may end up being a great place to store the batteries. From the photos, it certainly seems plausible. It's low, it's center mounted, and it would keep the balance of the car. This is a pretty common place that several supercar and EV manufacturers like Rimac have used for storing the batteries in their own cars. Now, there's a lot of additional speculation beyond what I've just mentioned, but these are the key trends that I've seen, and I believe that there's a fair likelihood of some, if not all of these being true. The further you dig, though, the wilder the ideas get, and the less likely they are to happen, so I'm not going to cover them right now. So what about price? Well, with all of the craziness of the Z06 pricing over the past month or so, I don't think there's anything giving us a clear enough indication of if this will be more or less than the Z06. I haven't heard anything I'd trust enough to speculate, so when I have more information, I'll share it then. So what about specs? Well, I'm glad you asked. There are a number of things we aren't sure about yet. One motor or two in the front, what kind of electric motor, because there's several different types of competing technologies, how much weight gets added between the batteries, the electronics, the high voltage modules, and the motors, and most importantly, how much power and torque does this add to the car? Now, I don't have all the answers yet. Chevy's been pretty tight-lipped. However, if we look at a couple other contemporaries with similar power systems, and then the Z06 and the Stingray, we can probably draw a few safe conclusions. The Ferrari SF90 adds 217 additional horsepower with its 3 electric motors. The NSX adds 119 horsepower, but more importantly, 217 pound-feet of torque with its 3 electric motors. And the venerable McLaren P1 adds 177 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque. The point I want to highlight here, more than the added power, is that the electric motors are adding significant torque and putting power down in the front of the car. This is going to pay big dividends for the performance. Speaking of performance, how is this going to affect the car? This is the part I'm most excited to talk about. First, I want to open with a quick clip courtesy of CarSpyMedia on YouTube. I want to offer my heartfelt thanks to CarSpyMedia for giving me permission to share a few clips from one of their recent videos. I recommend checking out their channel. They frequently have some of the first footage of all manners of test cars and supercars out on the Nürburgring, and they were wonderful in letting me use a piece of that footage. So on to the footage itself. We see multiple E-Ray cars out on the track doing their testing. It's very evocative of the Z06 test cars we saw about a year ago. The big thing here, though, that strikes me when watching this footage is how quickly the car accelerates. Seeing the car grip in the corners and pull hard onto the straights is clear that there's some really good things happening under that bodywork. So why is this significant? Well, hybridization offers a bunch of cool opportunities that can be leveraged, though it's not clear exactly how GM will apply the technology. There's the most obvious point, that this is going to be the first all-wheel drive Corvette. Considering that the Corvette has had rear-wheel drive for the entirety of the 70-year span of its existence, this is a really big change. Next up, it's obvious that the powertrain will allow GM to provide more power and torque throughout the power curve and the rev range. However, what's not as immediately obvious is how they choose to do it. With electric motors, you can model and map the power curves to suit various needs. The most obvious of which is that you can fill in the dips in the torque and power curves and change the way the engine responds. You also gain immediate torque right off the line, even at RPMs where the car normally is not making that much power. That, combined with the all-wheel drive aspect, will also dramatically change how this car launches and accelerates. Expect this car to have a 0 to 60 time somewhere in the low 2-second range, well under the Z06 at 2.6 seconds. This makes it the first time that a Corvette can really excel at all-season driving with wet or snowy roads. Though I'm not expecting too many owners to be using the car heavily in the winter, but the opportunity will be there. A silent mode or full EV mode, whether leaving your house early in the morning or just putting around town, there is a chance that Chevy will have a short full EV mode available so you can do a few errands without needing to use the gas engine. This isn't quite as green as it may seem if the car doesn't have a plug for charging, but the ability to cruise around quietly for a little while is a fun idea. Electric braking and regen. This could potentially allow the E-Ray to offer close to one-pedal driving in normal driving situations, which will keep the wear on the brakes lower than on a normal car. Drag strip destroyer. As we've seen with many all-wheel drive cars over the years, and especially some of the hybrid cars mentioned above, cars like this tend to be absolute monsters of acceleration, and the E-Ray is likely to stand out here. From the company that's building the Hummer EV, it wouldn't shock me if they really stack up the performance in this car. Grip, grip, and more grip, like Turbo S levels of performance. The most obvious way that all-wheel drive helps is that this car will grip really, really well. Leveraging the wider chassis of the Z06 and the very wide tires, combined with 4 wheels putting down power, expect the E-Ray to be glued to the road or the track and likely embarrass many cars that cost quite a bit more from a performance and handling perspective. And on to Fred's take. What do I think about all this? So after covering all of the stuff above, I wanted to give my take on the E-Ray, what it means for the Corvette brand, and what the future holds for Corvette. So I gotta admit, the E-Ray kinda snuck up on me late last year. I'd just seen the Z06 unveil video and was riding that high of excitement that we all were when we got to see and hear what the car was like. As I started searching for more info about the Z06, I noticed more than a few references to something called the E-Ray, and I didn't really give it much thought at first. Sort of like with the Porsche lineup, where the GT3 gets all the limelight and the Turbo S is sometimes overlooked for not being quite wild enough. The Z06 is Chevy's GT3, full stop. And I feel like, to a certain extent, the E-Ray has lurked in the shadow of the Z06 for the better part of the last couple years. However, with a quick teaser of the car being released, and more importantly, the ring testing footage coming to light, we know that the E-Ray isn't some sideshow act, but rather a full-blown main event of its own. What impresses me most about the car is that Chevy is demonstrating incredible foresight with the C8 platform, designing the chassis for the LT6 half a decade before the two would actually be combined in one car. A hollow battery tunnel waiting even longer for the E-Ray to break cover. Chevy has been thinking very creatively about packaging, about performance, about character and charisma for a long time. Getting back to the car though, there's a lot of big opinions out there. This isn't a real Corvette. I'll never own anything hybrid or battery powered. Put the engine back in the front and give it round taillights. The internet and the car world in general is full of people who don't accept the car, who won't accept the car, and who think this is a step in the wrong direction. And that's fine. The E-Ray doesn't care. It doesn't even notice. These people, they're going to be missing out. While the past is certainly something to be respected and cherished, it's also something to be learned from. Every lesson learned from every prior generation of Corvette, all the way back to 1953 and the first C1s, has built up the collective knowledge to give us the cars we're now seeing. Without progress, without change, we'd just have more of the same. We'd be stuck in a rut. If you look with any scrutiny at the comments from these people who pine for the older cars and the older features, front engine, round taillights, manual transmissions, cloth tops, pop-up headlights, and the like, you're going to see a common thread. They aren't liking those things because they're objectively better than anything else. They're liking them because of the memories, of the nostalgia, because they connected with those cars years ago and they want to hold on to a piece of that. The great news is that you can. You see, the thing that those people always seem to miss is that you already can go buy that dream car with those features right now. There will always be a market for classic cars, for enthusiast cars, for cars of a prior generation or several generations. What those people are missing is that making a new car doesn't invalidate any of the prior ones. The new cars are capable of things that the older cars couldn't even begin to attempt, specifically because of what was learned from those earlier cars. They are inextricably linked and cannot ever be separated. The Z06 and the E-Ray show that there is still a heartbeat at GM, and that the Corvette will always stand there as a beacon for performance, for cars with soul, and most importantly, for fun. So while some may be content focusing on things that they don't like, for no reason really other than subjectivity, myself and others will be having the time of our lives with our smiles pressed into our faces by the G-forces of cars like this, forming those same type of memories that prior generations so deeply cherish. Who knows, someday maybe I'll be one of those people complaining that the C13 doesn't look as good as the C8 or the C9. But for now, I think what a great time for cars this is. That you can go and buy a car with this kind of performance, this kind of capability, and it's made right here on our shores. The E-Ray is likely not the last variant of the C8 that we'll see. There are rumors of ZR1s, Zoras, and even a full EV version of the car, tapping into power levels that may even surpass the not-so-old Bugatti Veyron. But for now, that's all still just a glimmer in the distance, and the E-Ray is coming into focus now. The E-Ray is the Bowie knife to the Z06's scalpel, the sledgehammer to the carpenter hammer, the steak bomb to the Z's Philly cheesesteak. You want more? More power, more traction, more torque, more acceleration, more technology? The E-Ray is the car to get if you want more. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, Fred out!